Back, and you're watching Breakfast Show on Nile TV International, and it's time for our first segment, and we will be discussing sports tourism and its importance. Sports tourism, although it's been known in ancient Egypt and in ancient Rome, yet countries did not pay attention to its importance till the 1960s, and it wasn't only till 1990 that the Sport Tourism International Council was established. As for Egypt, tourism is an important aspect of the economy, and sports tourism can enhance that, especially with the various sports and international championships taking place in Egypt. And joining us in the studio to shed more light on that topic, we have with us Mr. Mohamed Shetta, and he's an automotive expert, as well as Mr. Ibraahim Mesery, and he's a tourism expert. Welcome with us in this.
Thank you. Good morning. Thank you very much for having us. Thank you.
Mr. Mohamed, first, tourism. Egypt has a problem nowadays with tourists and the field of tourism. How can we gain the trust of foreigners back and send a message that Egypt is still safe and it's a safe haven for tourism?
Actually, it's quite easy. We're not going to invent the wheel from you. All the other countries, like for example the United Arab Emirates or Bahrain, they started in attracting international tourists by hosting international sports events. For example, Bahrain hosted the first Formula One race in 2004. Only 3 years after that, Abu Dhabi hosted the Abu Dhabi Formula One race on their very famous Yas Marina racing circuit in Abu Dhabi, which actually costed them more than $1 billion. I'm not asking Egypt to build a racing facility for $1 billion, but actually, as we saw in last week, a couple of weeks ago, in the Suma Bay area, that they hosted the University Challenge, which is called the Global Hybrid and Electric Challenge between
Egypt,
the universities. It's an international challenge, and actually the first year it's only limited to the local universities in order to have a balanced competition. Because of course, if we would have invited foreign universities from outside Egypt, maybe they would have had more experience. And I was very happy that, for example, the University of South Valley was able actually to win one of the two races. I think they won the race on Friday, if I'm not mistaken.
They were awarded the second Grand Prix, or in the total winnings, they came second place.
Exactly. In the overall ranking, they came second, but on Friday they won the ahead of the American University and the Canadian and Ain Shams University and all the other universities as well. And I was very pleased to have so many different universities from all over Egypt, not only coming to compete in a challenge, but also to explore a new region. Actually, the region around Hurghada is very attractive, especially for the German tourists. And I met some tourists who were actually attending this event, and they were very happy that Egypt was hosting such an event, which is also event about hybrid technology and electric cars. So this brings us, I think Mr. Ibraahim can talk about the sustainability of such races much better than I can do.
Well, I think that we will be having the second segment dedicated to that particular race. So I'd rather stick to sports tourism till now. Yeah. So I'd like to ask you more about the most important sports which can be utilized to help tourism in Egypt.
I think there are multiple avenues. For example, one of the things that's been growing, and especially in the Red Sea, is of course water sports. I mean, water sports is a massive segment. Now there's the kite surfing industry, which is new. There's a lot of global tournaments that are held within that realm. We've got sort of tennis and squash championships that take place also in the Red Sea. And now what we try to do is to introduce motorsports, something that's not really very common locally, but we're trying to attract the international competitions to come and compete in Egypt. I think it's critical, as Mohamed said, it's one of the anchors that if you look at the Gulf, how they developed. So you've got the tennis tournaments that are taking place, big championships where you can get all the stars. Another avenue for us is golf. Golf is pretty big. Egypt now has several golf courses. We've got a championship course within the Hurghada region. So that encourages, you know, tourists to come and compete. So it opens a new avenue as opposed to the traditional sort of sun and fun market that we're used to.
Okay, Mr. Mohamed, Egypt has all the potential to be #1 touristic destination all over the world. As he said, in the Arab Gulf, they are paying billions of pounds in order to attract tourists.
Which will bring them even more billions.
Yeah, but here in Egypt we have already ready-made things from the pharaonic era and from other also eras. What's the problem with Egypt? Is it the propaganda? Is it wrong measures that Egypt is taking in order to not to have flow thousands of tourists to it?
I think it's a lack of vision, actually. We do not really have a vision of attracting new types of tourists or offering new types of tourism attractions. For example, we have been focusing on the pyramids and Sharm el-Sheikh and Luxor and Aswan for the past 30, 40, 50 years. We forgot the eco tourism, for example. We only have in Fayoum, in Bahrain, we have, I think, 2 or 3 hotels who are providing ecotourism for tourists who are interested in environmental friendly facilities, for example. The fact that, for example, we totally ignored things like motorsports, for example. I think we have the pyramids. Just imagine we would have a Formula 1 racing circuit or any racing circuit around the pyramids with the pyramids in the background. This is something something amazing. You can't really have it anywhere in the world, and this would be something so unique that so many tourists, instead of going to Abu Dhabi or instead of going to Korea or instead of going to the Formula 1 race in Singapore, for example, they would probably come to Egypt because it offers something unique which is not available anywhere else in the world. So I think it's mainly lack of vision of the past 10 or 15 Minister of Tourism, unfortunately, which did not really put sports tourism on their top agenda. And hopefully that, I don't know if the Minister of Tourism will be changed in the next cabinet change or not. I hope that the next or the current Minister of Tourism will really put more attention to that fact. The fact that we were able to host the global hybrid and electric challenge here in Egypt between the universities, I think, like I said before, the tourists I met at the event, they were really happy to see something like this going on. And I think if we have more, not only competitions between the universities, but we should also have other automotive and car racing series, which not only would attract the tourists, but also would attract the international car companies to come to Egypt and to sponsor such teams. You know, we have over 40 car brands represented in Egypt. Not only one of them actually was a car brand from Munich. It was the only automotive car brand in this competition sponsoring the Helwan team. And I think this is not enough, because we have at least 27 potential universities from 27 governorates, and I think it would really be possible to find 27 automotive companies to sponsor each team in order to enable them to go compete not only next month but also in the next year in the international competitions, because next, I think on the 14th of April, I think is the
7th of April is the Middle East tournament, and we're also, which is hopefully we're trying to bring that to Egypt later this year, and then the global one. So it's in that area, there's so much more we can do. But if I can address your question, the issue of Egypt is basically mismanagement. Yani, on top of the whole, yani, let me ask you this: we're unable to manage the pyramids.
That's absolutely
I think this says it all. And if we can't manage the site of the pyramids, the Great Pyramids of Giza, we're unable to manage anything. The reality is, classic Egypt, which is the pyramids and Luxor, Aswan, is dead. It's wiped out in terms of tourism. We have the 300 Nile boats that do the Nile cruise. They're not operational. So interestingly, the investment over the past 20 years has directed tourism towards our beaches and the underwater sort of realm, our rainforest, basically. So we've driven that But what's happening now is, again, that's slowly now being eroded. I think there's just mismanagement of the current situation. The reality is, I think we're not facing any different circumstances compared to other countries in the region and globally. We've seen what happened in Brussels yesterday, and before that Paris. So it's not, these are the pressures that the whole world is facing. But it's a matter of communicating, it's a matter of getting the flights back, it's a matter of showing that Egypt is safe. And now you do this by bringing sports, so you get the megastars into the country, be it motorsports. I think the interesting thing is opening new avenues, and we should stop being traditional in our approach.
Thinking outside the box.
You need to think outside the box. Why not? We, as Mohamed said, we don't have to build a Formula One track. There are many other exactly races, etc. That you can. In the race we had at Soma, we basically used the existing road network, and we had the race around the marina. So you could actually build a track using the current network. You can do that. You can.
Like in Monaco, for example.
Exactly.
The Formula One race in Monaco is also built around the marina, and it looks amazing in the pictures and for the TV channels and everything. So
it's more from photography, videography. It actually looks much better. So you can use those assets across the country to bring things in. I think we've had the squash tournaments where they used some of the islands in the Hurghada region, and they basically build the glass courts. We're bringing beach tennis, something that we're actually going to be hosting the first beach tennis tournament. I don't think it's very interesting. You don't actually need a court. How easy is that? We were able to get the beach volleyball teams that are going to Rio 2016 to come and train. You have to remember that Egypt has a very unique competitive advantage over everybody. Not just the fact that we have the sites. We have something called winter sun. Okay, so within a 3 to 4 hour flight from Europe, you can actually access a weekend destination where you can basically have good weather when they're suffering. And that's why what we've been saying is, let's bring sport, because all the teams in Europe, they suffer, and accordingly what we do is we attract the golf tournaments. In summer we can't compete with Europe, they'll go play in Europe, we'll get the tennis. But what we're seeing is the golf is basically drawing all the action, but the golf is actually twice the distance, right? It's 8 hours to hit Dubai and the other regions, so you're better off.
And hot weather as well.
And the weather. But in winter, you can say it's okay.
Yeah.
But in summer, we've got the advantage. But in summer, we can't compete with Europe. So Egypt is quite in a good position.
Actually, we've got the video of part of the tournament right now. Here it is on on air. Now, for that particular tournament, the preparations for it, did it take you long to prepare for it?
Well, we've been working on getting this challenge to Egypt now for 8 months. Interestingly, this challenge took place in Abu Dhabi in 2014.
Which President Sisi, by the way, attended, and he handed over the prizes with
Sheikh Mohamed at the time.
Yes.
And
so President Sisi knows about this challenge. Just to make it clear to the viewers that this is nothing new. But the problem, which I actually was surprised of, that only the governor of the Red Sea governorate came to attend this. I was actually expecting the minister of youth and sports to be, and the minister of higher education to be attending as well. So it's really a shame that the government members, the members of the government, were not really present at that event.
It was a great event because it hits on something I think we keep talking about it, which is youth, right? We've got a young population, and in order for a team to participate, these are engineering students from universities across the country, and for them to actually start using their skills and get into building cars, it will cost them maybe $100,000 to go and compete internationally. So we actually brought the competition to them and gave them that opportunity. We brought the car kits. It's not the car kits. Basically, they've got different parts and they build their cars and they race. It was fantastic, and that's why later on you're going to talk to South Valley. We were shocked. South Valley joined in the last 5 days before the event, and the reason was there was no sponsorship. And the governor of the Red Sea, who's a very active gentleman, he basically said, how can we have a competition in the Red Sea and not have our local university? So we basically got a sponsor who paid for them. The team came and in 4 days built a car and raced and won one of the 2 races. We had an electric race the first day. The second day it was a hybrid race. They won the hybrid race, but overall Ain Shams had the better score, so they took number 1. South Valley got number 2. And that was very interesting. The preparations, of course, are a bit challenging when there are no sponsors. Now, I think it was sort of, people don't like to hedge their bets on something being done for the first time. So we sort of followed the mentality of build it and they will come. So we decided we'll go for the first one, and hopefully once the next one comes, then we can attract all the car companies. As Mohamed said, it's just ridiculous that only one company from Munich is the one that participated, while we could have had more students, and you have to keep in mind also the sustainability element in this. We talk about energy, we talk about electric cars, and not only that, it's the technical assistance. There are volunteers from all the big car manufacturers, and now there are manufacturers of the electric cars who actually came and helped teach the students how to build their cars and race. So we're building something for the future.
And which actually brings us also to a very important point. We need clean technology, we need environmental friendly technology in order to have clean air in Egypt, which will attract first the tourists. Secondly, it will attract on the long term the investors. Because what we want most at this time, at this critical time, is foreign investment and foreign investors. And actually, they will not come if you don't have clean air in Egypt. And those technologies, the electric and hybrid car technologies, are actually one of the key factors in which we can reduce the emissions and the air pollution in Egypt. So this is why I think it would have been a very, very important point that all the relevant ministries would have been involved in something like this, promoting and encouraging the universities in developing. I mean, we are not going to be able to compete with the international automotive companies which have already reached the highest technology in emissions. For example, in Europe they use something called the Euro 6, which is the highest level of emissions currently. We will not be inventing the wheel from scratch. I mean, they already have the technology. We just need to adapt it to the circumstances we have in Egypt. And I hope that such competitions will encourage the youth, which we have been talking about since 2011, and encouraging the youth and giving them opportunities and giving them chances, that this will be a very good opportunity to really let them invent something which the Egyptian economy definitely needs.
Okay, Mr. Ibraahim, of course, sports is one of the main factors that boosts tourism, but you are targeting here a certain segment of tourists. You are targeting the younger generation, those who are interested in sports, but not all tourists are interested in this field. So what other ideas do we must have in order to attract most of the tourists?
Well, I think you have to have a mixed bag, right? A basket. So you've got the attractions, which is the classic, basically the antiquities. You've got that. Mm-hmm. It's a matter of managing it. Right now, the sites are difficult. You've got the sun, which is key. So you're not doing much there. Mm-hmm. You've got the underwater and the above water, basically water sport activities, which you're driving. One of the things that we've also been driving is retreats. Medical tourism is a huge area. If you look at the amount of money, even not just attracting tourists from the region, but even Egyptians who actually go and spend money abroad for all sorts of detox or even cosmetic surgery, that's huge. And if you provide a center of excellence, there's that realm, and I think a lot of people are looking into the medical tourism field. Definitely, yes, sports is one angle. I believe one of the other areas is music. We're not, again, it's really unfortunate because 15 years ago, we were way ahead of the Gulf. When they had their targets, we thought, it's a pipe dream. And then now they're ahead of us. So now all the international concerts and performances happen in Dubai. That's the reality, right? So we're not on the tour. That's an area, we've actually driven that. One of the biggest rock bands, we were able to attract them to perform in the Red Sea, which was the Dire Straits, a famous band from the 80s. We brought them in. We're trying to bring more current bands to perform in Egypt. I believe Bryan Adams was performing at the Pyramids a couple of weeks ago. So that's another area where you can attract tourists for music. But let's leverage all of these different things. When we talk about sustainability or ecotourism, as Mohamed mentioned, it's key. You know, when you go on a booking site for an airline, one of the things is they say, you know, you want to sort of offset the carbon emissions of your flight. You pay extra. We've actually got that in one of our hotels where, you know, people come and plant trees. This is becoming something that people think of. Yes, it's not massive yet, but they're layers. So if you have a mixed bag, then you're not in a basically falling in the trap which we're in right now, which is we're caught in one segment. We're caught in winter sun, and you're tied to tour operators. So if they close the tap, your tourism shuts down, as opposed to having diversity.
Yeah.
Well, Mr. Mohamed Shetta, automotive expert, and Mr. Ibraahim Mesery, tourism expert, thank you very much for this interview. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Well, and that wraps up our first segment of today, and we will be back after, again with tourism, looking at a tourism report with our colleague Gina Yunus to explore more sites in Egypt.